Yeah, we've got a big week ahead of us. We're excited to be headed to Nashville for the SEC tournament. Last time it was in Nashville, we won it. We had a few goals this season. First was to win the regular season. We accomplished that. It was goal one. The next one's to win the tournament. So our guys are focused on that. We've always bounced back after a loss pretty well this year. Expect nothing different this time. I think we've had 3 great practices leading into this tournament. We've got one more tomorrow up in Nashville. Our guys have been great. So we had a good week with the individual awards. That's why we've got these guys here. We had set a program record with 6 different players getting 9 different awards. So it was great for them. They've worked really hard. Been a great group to work with. Brandon was named SEC Player of the Year and Freshman of the Year, along with being first team All-SEC. He's the first player since Anthony Davis to get Freshman of the Year and Player of the Year. So there's been some really good players in the SEC in that time frame. So really proud of him, happy for him. JQ, first time in program history that we've got 6th Man of the Year in the SEC. He's grown a ton as a leader. Really happy for him, and he played well last time we were in Nashville and won the SEC tournament. So looking for that again out of him. And awards of this caliber are not easy to come by. So I just can't say enough about those guys. And then, also, and you guys are fully aware of the awards, but we also had 4 other guys get awards. So I thought it's big for our program that guys were able to be recognized, and looking forward to playing that first game Friday night up in Nashville.
Brandon, along with the awards you got this week, you were named a finalist for the Julius Erving Award. Just what does that mean to you, and to kind of be in that company?
It means a lot. I'm just really honored because there's many great players out there in the world, especially in our league. So it's just a blessing, really. So I'm just really honored.
For Brandon, obviously, there's been some stuff happening off the court. Just, do you have any comment on that and how this has kind of transpired for you and dealing with it?
I never lose sight of the fact a family has lost one of their loved ones that night. This whole situation is just really heartbreaking. But respectfully, that's all I'm going to be able to say about on that.
For JQ, what have you told Brandon to kind of help him out? What was the team's message to Brandon as the players to kind of help him through this time?
I feel like we just, we stayed together as a team, and we just made sure that he was good.
For both Brandon and Jahvon, there's certainly been a lot of national attention on this program in the last couple of weeks, and you've gone to visiting arenas where there's been chants, towards you and towards the team. For Brandon first, how much has that affected you? And for Jahvon, how has that affected the rest of the team hearing that?
We hear the chants. I feel like we just really lean on each other just to go to places like that and just try to pull out tough wins.
JQ, obviously winning 6th Man of the Year. It just seems like your entire career out there was kind of just one big movie. If you could look back at when you first got here, you kind of see how you transition now. What do you look back and think about the most?
I probably think about my retro year the most. Just how tough that was for me, not being able to play, and just having to just practice and not be able to play in the games, and how hard that was. And then the following year, win the SEC championship. It's been a journey. It really has been. And I wouldn't change anything in my journey because it's made me the person that I am today. And that's why I'm so honored to receive 6th Man this year, even though I feel like I should have won it 2 years ago.
Yeah, Brandon, just in the past month or so, there's been just criticism, the fact that you haven't sat out any games. How would you respond to that?
Again, I just lean on my teammates, and we just go places to get wins.
Brandon, along with that question that Nick just asked, just to add to that, just to have the mental fortitude and to be able to rely on your team during all of this criticism, I guess we can call it, the extra spotlight on you. I mean, something you could never prepare for. What's been the biggest challenge for you and able to stay focused in the game of basketball?
Respectfully, can't really say more on that, really.
Brandon, when your name came out a couple weeks ago in court, did you have anybody in your ear telling you that it would be easier for you or better off for you if you just withdrew and started getting ready for the draft?
Yeah, ask that again.
So when your name came out a couple weeks ago, did you have people in your ear saying, Brandon, why don't you just withdraw and get ready for the draft?
I hear a lot of people in ears of chance, I just feel like I just lean on these guys next to me and, it just build me up to a person that I am now.
Brandon, it's award season, and your name's going to be mentioned for a lot of things. Just two questions, kind of, what do you want to be remembered as at Alabama? What legacy do you want to leave behind? And then also, you just did talk about the draft. What would be your message towards an NBA team getting Brandon Miller at the end of this season?
One thing, I want to be remembered as a champion. I know JQ has a ring on his under his name. I feel like, where I'm from, so I feel like we can go to Nashville. We can go to Nashville and win another ring. So I feel like that's just the biggest thing with us. Just want to be known as a winning team.
And then your message to NBA teams about what they would be getting.
Can't really speak on what they be getting now. Kind of just control what I control now and just going out to Nashville and get wins.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, you talked about just how important this kind of extra couple days between games would be. I mean, how's that been for your players in terms of getting them kind of refreshed, and what have you seen the last few days of practice?
Yeah, it was good because we got back to really concentrating on us. When you play 2 games a week for pretty much since Christmas break, it's really prep for that team, prep for the next team, prep for the next team, and you're not able to focus just on you as much as you were in some of the non-conference, whatever. So we got back to really cleaning up what we felt like we had to get better at. Guys were able to do a lot more individual skill stuff. We've got different shooting drills we do in practice. We did one today. We set a program record for it. It's all threes. I feel like we're shooting the ball a little better, which would help the situation out. I think our guys got some confidence back. Some guys that maybe were getting a little banged up got their legs back up under them. I think they're a little more fresh. We've tried to be smart with, we've got a lot of data that Henry and Clark, our strength coach, our trainer, give us on workload, all that stuff. We've tried to be real smart with that while still getting a lot of work in these last 3 days. So I feel like we've gotten ourselves better. Now we're starting to turn, and we still don't know who we're going to play. So you can't take a whole day and just put it to one team. So we're doing a little bit of that, but we're getting ourselves back to being the best version of us we can be.
You hear all the time, Coach, that sports allows you to keep your focus where you need it to be. Obviously, this team has been tested in so many ways this season. As I just asked Brandon, I want to ask you the mental fortitude. What have you learned about the team watching them go through each week, and what have you also learned about yourself during this?
Yeah, it's a great question. I go back to when we first got together as a team the first week this summer. And like the love for the team amongst themselves, and they're a great group of kids. They all love each other, and everybody says they're going to have great culture. at the beginning of the year, and then you go through the season and face adversity, whether it's losses or off-court adversity, and you find out how much you really do care for each other, love each other, and your culture gets tested a little bit. And I think our guys have responded well. They've really leaned into each other. They love each other. You know, myself, you know, you lean on my faith a lot. Spend a little more time in the scriptures praying for wisdom. It's been a very tough situation, as you understand. I mean, like Brandon said, it's been heartbreaking, just on all accounts. But, you know, there's things that are a lot bigger in life than basketball. But, you know, at the same time, we still have, my job is to lead these young men, and they needed a lot of leading this year. And, you know, I don't think God puts you through anything more than you can handle. So that's kind of where my thoughts have had to turn in these last few weeks.
I feel like we've talked a lot about JQ here of late, but with him being the sixth man of the year, what does that say about him? I know he did it a few years ago, but just to kind of buy into being that first guy off the bench and not a starter, that kind of maturity he's had.
Yeah, he's been unbelievably great that way. I mean, you think about him and his career. I mean, this, you know, he's about 4 years late for the NIL. If they had NIL back when he was coming through high school with Jelly Fam and all that, I mean, he's one of the most popular basketball players in America as a high school kid. So for him to, then, you know, everything he went through to get to where he finally got to us, for them, you know, then he has to sit. He just told you that was the toughest year of his career. He sits a year. Then when he finally is able to play, you know, to come off the bench after having his name, that takes some humility. It also takes some leadership, takes some selflessness, and he's been all that. And he's grown a lot as a leader. You know, I think the picture was put out of Jay Wright and him and me kind of talking there before the last game, and Jay's point was how much he had grown since Jay had him. My point was how much he's grown since we first got him. And, you know, he's really turned himself into a great leader that really cares about his teammates and cares about the right things. And guys that only care about starting, to me, are worried about the wrong things. He cares about doing whatever it takes for his team to win, and that's what he's been about. So I'm glad he was able to be recognized for Sixth Man of the Year, because he's been, now he got tournament MVP. He might not have got Sixth Man of the Year 2 years ago, but he did get tournament MVP. So he's gotten some pretty good awards in the past too.
I don't know if I have a chance to talk to you before Friday, but as far as Florida and Mississippi State, just kind of what you've seen out of Florida since Castleton went down, and then how Mississippi State, you know, played you really tough both games this year.
Yeah, listen, Florida's definitely different now that Castleton's down, and it took them a little bit to adjust. You know, Kugel's playing great. You know, other guys have stepped up. They're different. They play smaller, more. You know, they'll put Fudge at the 5 more. So if Florida ends up winning it, we're going to have to make more adjustments from the first time we play them, just because they're different. If Mississippi State wins, we played them twice. They played us really tough the last time. They're one of the hardest playing teams in America. So we're going to have to come ready to go. Obviously, you know, Tolu Smith's one of the best players in the league. You know, you know, they say it's hard to beat a team 3 times. There's some truth, because, you know, they've made adjustments, and I'll make another adjustment. So whichever way it ends up being, we're going to have a tough game in front of us. These are not easy tournaments to win. I mean, you've got to win 3 tough, hard-fought games in a row, starting with either Florida or Mississippi State on Friday night. So, you know, and we're looking at both of them, but we're not trying to give the players too much of either one. Once we figure out who it'll be, we'll go full out on that.
You touched on the rare opportunity to play Mississippi State maybe 3 times, depending on how it goes between them and Florida. Just what were the adjustments that you saw between game 1 and game 2, and how did you kind of counteract that?
You know, I thought they did a better job defensively, just trying to take us out of some of the stuff that worked against them at their place. I mean, one of the other, and I don't know if you want to call it an adjustment, but shoot, they couldn't make a free throw at their place, which we benefited from the free throw line, their poor free throw shooting. They shot them a lot better the second time, and we didn't play all that well. So, they do a good job slowing the game down. We obviously like to get up tempo. We got to figure out a way to get the pace a little faster against them. They did a good job keeping the pace at where they want it, much more in the half court. So, the best way to get the pace where you want it is get more stops. If you're running off stops and rebounds, they can try to slow it as much as they want, but it's harder to slow it when you're doing that. So we've got to be better defensively against them. We got to get more stops and rebounds so we can get in transition a little bit more if in fact, we end up playing them a third time.
When it comes to postseason play, some teams have significant changes compared to what you do regular season, and some just make any changes at all. What is kind of the approach for you and your team in terms of balancing what needs to change and also kind of needs to stay the same?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to make whether it's game 1 to game 2 within the regular season, like Mississippi State, or whether the first time you played a team is the regular season, the second time you played them is in the postseason, there's going to be adjustments made. As far as just making adjustments from regular season to postseason, we don't really make any adjustments as far as that goes. Like, we're going to play our style of basketball as we know how. Now, game 1 to game 2 or game 2 to game 3, those adjustments are going to be made, but those are going to be made whether they're in the regular season or regular season to postseason. So there's going to be adjustments made whether we play Florida or Mississippi State, but as far as just adjusting to playing in the postseason, it's not the NBA. The NBA, you get in a 7-game series with the same team. It's a 1-game deal, just like it's a 1-game deal in the regular season. So I try to pump the guys full as much confidence as I can, and let's just be better at what we've said we're going to be good at.
Just we talked with Brandon for the first time. Just how have you noticed him responding, and has he changed at all? Is it just off the court, or how has he kind of handled things? We've seen him on the court, hasn't really changed him, but just how is he handling it?
I'm gonna be honest with you. He's taken this whole situation very seriously from day one. It's a tough situation for all of us, and it's just sad, to be honest with you. But I never thought Brandon was flipping with any of it ever. So as far as off the court goes, not necessarily huge changes, but I didn't think there needed to be any big changes. But, I mean, he's a great kid that we're all going through a tough situation together, and, we're just trying to lean on each other through this deal, to be honest with you.
When you've got a guy who's got like a mechanical flaw or a fundamental flaw in his shot, obviously I would assume that's something you're going to be wanting to work on in the off season. But how hard is it to deal with something like that when you're on the fly here going into postseason? So
it's funny you ask. So we obviously haven't shot the ball well. I'm guessing that's why you're asking. So we, as a staff, over the last week, really before we got to Monday, we looked at every single one of our shooters, every three-point attempt they've taken on the year. And we analyzed like every one. What are they doing different on makes versus misses? There's not any fundamental flaws necessarily that we have to go in and fix on a shot. Like you talk about, you really only do that in the off season. But there were certain things with different ones. Some guys were leaning out of their shot on their misses, and they were doing it a lot more lately. Some guys weren't getting as much lift. Part of that may be their legs were getting a little tired. It's getting later, so let's get their legs back up under them. Some guys just weren't holding their follow through. I mean, something simple would go back to when you first learned how to shoot a basketball, just some little details, small things. We showed all the guys kind of different stuff, tried to work with them on just make sure we're doing this every time. And you can't make any major changes at this point of the year in March. And none need to be made. But some little details were addressed. Hopefully you'll see some results this weekend, because it certainly helped if we made shots at a little higher level.
Is it kind of like coaching kickers in football? You just let them do their thing and hope they're in the right space?
I equate free throws to kickers. Like, the more you talk about it, the worse it gets. So with the free throws, let's go in and shoot, but it's, we have to make free throws. Well, as soon as we have to make it, and you start overthinking it, that's when, you covered football for a long time. I think you don't want to get the yips at the free throw line, like you don't want to get the yips kicking field goals either.